Aunts and uncles accused me of tearing the family apart. My response was the same every time. I didn't tear it apart. I just showed you where it was already cracked. Then I blocked them all. Randy's life unraveled fast. Emily filed for divorce. He lost custody after threatening her during an argument. The company his father ran distanced itself from him. His picture-perfect world, gone. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Emily reached out. At first, it was just a thank you. Then a coffee. Then a friendship. She told me she'd always suspected something but didn't have proof. Her kids, my little cousins, started calling me uncle. And for the first time in my life, I felt part of a real family. No judgment. No comparison. Just love. Years passed. I married my partner. We built a life that was quiet, honest, and full. And then, like clockwork, my family reached out again. Suddenly, they wanted to reconnect. They congratulated me. Said they missed me. But I knew what it really was. They'd lost their golden boy. They needed a new narrative. I didn't reply. Because peace is priceless. And I wasn't about to trade mine for fake apologies. Sometimes, revenge doesn't look like fire or fury. It looks like peace. It looks like sitting at a table surrounded by people who actually care. It looks like watching a child you love laugh, and realizing you don't miss the people who made you feel small. Randy once told me I'd never amount to anything. Now he's a cautionary tale whispered behind closed doors. And me. I'm finally happy. Because the truth is, I was never the black sheep. I was just the only one who saw through their lies. Blood might be thicker than water, but that doesn't make it cleaner. And sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's freedom. If you're listening and you've ever felt like the failure of your family, remember this. The quiet ones are often the strongest. And when they finally speak, their truth can shake the room. If this story struck a chord with you, hit that like button. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up to family for what's right? And don't forget to subscribe, because every week, we share stories that remind you. Karma might take her time, but she never forgets. They said I'd never make it. Every holiday, every dinner, every phone call, someone found a way to remind me that I wasn't like the others. No medical degree. No big paycheck. No mansion in the suburbs. Just a small apartment in New York City, a part-time cafe job, and a quiet life that, apparently, didn't meet their definition of success. But what they didn't know was that their perfect family had a secret. And one Christmas night, I exposed it, in front of everyone. That was the last time I ever sat at that table. And honestly, it was the first time I ever felt free. If you've ever been made to feel small, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, this story will speak to you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you believe in poetic justice, and let's dive into the night I turned years of humiliation into one brutal moment of truth. I was the family disappointment. It wasn't official, but everyone knew it. My cousins were overachievers, the kind of people who collected titles like trophies. Doctor, professor, architect, entrepreneur. They wore their success like a uniform, pressed, polished, perfect. And then there was me. I didn't want any of that. I wanted peace. I'd made some smart early investments, a few small business decisions that earned me a modest but stable passive income. Enough to pay rent for a small one-bedroom apartment in New York City, cover groceries, and still have time to work a few shifts at a coffee shop that I actually liked. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. To them, though, I was lazy. Wasting my potential. At every reunion, I was the punchline dressed up as concern. Still doing that coffee thing? Have you thought about going back to school? You're young, don't you want to achieve something? Even my parents, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, joined in. My mom's voice was always soft, but the words still cut. You're so smart, honey. It's such a shame you don't push yourself. Push myself toward what? A life that made me miserable? They never understood. But the one who enjoyed it the most, the one who made sure every insult stung just a little harder, was my cousin Randy. Randy was the kind of man my family worshipped. Loud, confident, rich, the walking embodiment of everything I was supposed to want. He worked for his father's company. Everyone acted like he'd built an empire with his bare hands. Truth. His dad handed him a position and a paycheck the size of a small country's GDP. He wore tailored suits, drove a black sports car, and talked like life was a game he'd already won. And every time we were in the same room, he'd remind me of it. "Still pouring lattes, cousin?" he'd say with that smirk. "At least someone's out there keeping the caffeine industry alive." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because not laughing meant you couldn't take a joke. Randy always had a drink in his hand, always surrounded by attention. Married to a beautiful woman named Emily, 2 picture-perfect kids, a house so big it had a name instead of an address. He had everything. And I had nothing, at least according to them. But life has a strange way of balancing itself out. Sometimes, it takes a while. Sometimes, it happens on a random Tuesday afternoon. It was summer. The air was thick, the kind of heat that sticks to your skin. I just finished my shift at the cafe and decided to walk instead of taking the train. The city was alive, music from a street performer, laughter spilling from bars, the smell of bagels and exhaust blending into something weirdly comforting. And then, out of the crowd, I saw a familiar face. Randy. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. He wasn't supposed to be in the city, he lived in the suburbs. But there he was, walking down 6th Avenue like he owned it. And he wasn't alone. The woman next to him wasn't Emily. She was younger. Dressed like she'd stepped out of a magazine. They walked close, too close, and when they stopped at a crosswalk, he leaned in and kissed her. Right there. In public. Something inside me went still. For a second, I almost laughed. The golden boy. The family hero. The man who lectured me about responsibility, cheating on his wife in broad daylight. I should have walked away. But instead, I pulled out my phone. They strolled into a cafe. I followed, pretending to browse. They shared dessert, touched hands across the table, whispered, laughed. Then they left, arms around each other. I kept following. Through stores. Down blocks. Into a hotel. They disappeared inside. And I got the photo. Randy's arm around her, her head on his shoulder, hotel sign glowing above them. Click. Proof. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at those photos. Part of me wanted to send them to Emily right away. Another part of me, the one that had endured years of humiliation, told me to wait. Because timing matters. I made a folder on my computer. Labeled it, Receipts. And I waited. For 6 months. During that time, family dinners continued. So did the comments. Randy bragged about business trips. His parents bragged about him. My parents sighed about me. Every time they mentioned him, I saw those photos in my mind. And then December arrived. Christmas at Randy's parents' mansion, a family tradition that felt more like a corporate event. That year, I decided to attend. But not for nostalgia. I had a mission. The house looked like a magazine cover. Garlands, crystal chandeliers, a tree that touched the ceiling. Everyone dressed like it was a royal dinner. As usual, I was the outsider. When I walked in, Randy smirked. Well, look who showed up. Guess Starbucks gave you the day off. I smiled back. Guess so. I could feel the weight of the photos in my jacket pocket. Glossy, crisp. My heart pounded with every step I took. Dinner started. Laughter filled the room. I played along, nodding, smiling, pretending. Then dessert arrived. Wine glasses clinked. Randy raised his to make a toast about family unity. That was my cue. I stood up slowly. Before we toast, I said, I thought I'd share some family photos of my own. The room went quiet. Every head turned. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the envelope, and placed it in front of Emily, Randy's wife. She looked confused, then curious. She opened it. Photo after photo slid onto the table. Randy. The blonde woman. The hotel. The kiss. The silence that followed was almost physical. Emily's eyes went wide. Her hands shook. Her voice cracked. What is this? Randy's face drained of color. This isn't. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it, Randy? She hissed. Explain it. The table erupted. People shouting. Chairs scraping. My mother crying. Randy's father slammed his fist down. Enough. You bring this filth here, to our home, at Christmas. I turned to him. You raised him. You tell me who brought the filth. That was when he hit me. Open hand. Across the face. The sound echoed. I stumbled, vision flashing. My cheek burned, my ears rang. Everyone froze. My partner screamed my name. Someone called the police. And for the first time in my life, I didn't back down. I looked straight at them, at all of them, and said, Merry Christmas. The cops came. Statements were given. My partner and I left, escorted by flashing lights reflecting off snow. That night, I sat in silence. My face throbbed, but I felt lighter. For once, I wasn't the one being judged. I was the one holding the truth. In the following days, my phone exploded. My parents begged me to apologize. Randy's father called me disgraceful.